Hey everybody, it's Ben, and I'm back once again with another video. I'm just going to give you my quick thoughts on Batman issue number 1 and also issue 2, which I read digitally via Comixology. So, the story in issue 1 starts out with Batman and Jim Gordon discussing the theft of 3 anti aircraft missiles from a military base, which Gordon is really surprised that Batman knows about, considering that how top secret and how, hush hush the military are, particularly with the theft of their equipment. But of course, Batman being the world's greatest detective, even though it's sort of obscure thing, would probably get the Batman's attention. Unfortunately, although Gordon's men were successful in reobtaining 2 of the 3 stolen anti-aircraft missiles, the third and final one actually finds its way into a plane carrying a plane full of passengers, which is currently on its descent into Gotham Airport. So we have Batman then rushing off, trying to essentially save the plane. There's some really great discussion over the intercoms with Batman, Alfred, and Duke Thomas from the We Are Robin series, who is currently now working with Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, on a different capacity rather than being a Robin in the We Are Robin book, which got cancelled around issue 12, I think. So, you have Duke and Batman in a discussion about the fact that Batman needs an angle in order to get up to this plane, and we have Batman actually telling Alfred to signal the members of the Justice League, particularly the heavy hitters such as Hal Jordan, aka Green Lantern, and obviously Superman, aka Clark Kent. Unfortunately, he gets an automated response from both members, so Batman has to actually take it upon himself to actually save this plane, and he actually acknowledges it and says that this is my city, I will save the plane. So, Batman essentially catapulting himself via an ejector seat in the Batmobile up to the plane, and you have another great discussion between Alfred and Batman regarding the height of the buildings that the plane is passing over and the width and the distance between each of these buildings, so Batman can successfully maneuver the plane over to presumably the Gotham Bay or the Gotham River in an attempt to effectively crash land the plane, but land it successfully without costing any of the lives on board the plane. So again, it's a really great solo adventure story with Batman essentially, despite the fact that Batman has no powers, he takes it upon himself to actually save this plane full of people, and he has a really touching exchange with Alfred regarding, would Thomas and Martha Wayne, his parents, be proud of him, and was from the initial shock and the initial impact, if Batman were to stay on the plane, which he had to do in order to successfully manually pilot this plane to essentially safely crash land into the Gotham Bay or into the Gotham River, the initial shock of the impact would obviously take Batman's life, so he'd essentially have to sacrifice himself. And he asks Alfred, is this a good death? And Alfred says to him in response, rest assured, my boy, your parents will be proud as I am proud, and yes, this is a good death. But the issue ends with the introduction of 2 new superheroes in the city of Gotham, which are Gotham and Gotham Girl, who essentially save the plane before it actually crash lands into the Gotham River. The second issue opens with Batman training Gotham and Gotham Girl in ways to become essentially better heroes, but also there's another really great scene at the start of the issue, which is a fight scene or a battle between Batman, Gotham, and Gotham Girl up against Solomon Grundy. And you're Batman taking on more of a teacher or a mentor role to Gotham and Gotham Girl, teaching them to be better, not to make mistakes, and trying to get them up to kind of not so much Superman level, but get them up to Superman's caliber in terms of being effective heroes, but at the same time also, just being the symbols of hope that he hopes, I would imagine, that Gotham and Gotham Girl will eventually be for Gotham City. So we have Batman essentially attending this gala in the Morrison Room, which is probably a little nugget for long-standing Batman fans and a bit of a nudge and a wink to Grant Morrison, and obviously from Grant Morrison's run on Batman before the New 52. So that was a really nice touch. And you have essentially Bruce is in the gala dancing with this really pretty lady. He sees the bat signal, flip on and the signals in the sky, so he says he has to go, and he actually has a really polarizing discussion between himself, Alfred, and Duke, where he says that he's going to take Gotham and Gotham Girl along on this one to essentially meet the commissioner, introduce them to Jim Gordon, and obviously just to acknowledge to Jim that they're with me, and the fact that they helped save the plane full of people in the previous issue. So they're kind of stand-up people in regards to they've done one really good deed already in Batman's eyes, and wants to give them some credit and acknowledgement with the GCPD in the form of Commissioner James Gordon, or Jim Gordon. It's a really polarizing discussion where Duke actually asks him, do you even trust these guys? They show up out of nowhere. They've got flight, they've got X-ray vision, they've got all these super strength, all these crazy powers. And Batman, or Bruce Wayne, just says a little bit of a flippant comment where he says, they've got, flight, X-ray vision, super strength, etc. As far as trusting them, I don't even trust Alfred, which might have been intended as a bit of a joke between the characters, but considering the amount of history that Alfred Pennyworth has with not just Bruce Wayne but the Batman family in general, you'd think that after all this time that Batman would essentially trust Alfred, because he's his closest confidant, he's a mentor and a father figure to Bruce Wayne. He's also been a surrogate father figure and even more of a grandfatherly figure to members of the Bat family, particularly between Nightwing and Dick Grayson, when Dick Grayson essentially took on the mantle of Batman after Batman's apparent death in the pages of the Final Crisis event by Grant Morrison and J.G. Jones and a plethora of other artists at the time. So you have Alfred essentially saying to him, you're taking up of your inheritance of the Batman mantle shouldn't be a memorial to Bruce Wayne. It should be a performance, because Dick Grayson obviously hailed from a circus, so his tenure as the Batman should be a performance and not so much a memorial in terms of trying to fill Batman's shoes, considering that Batman was quote unquote dead at the time, even though he had only been sent back to the beginning of time and had to essentially work his way back through time up to the present day, and then essentially come back from seemingly the dead and re-inherit the mantle of the Bat. So, I mean, perhaps it was a joke, perhaps it was a little bit of comedy that was not sort of the best timing, really. I mean, I know some humour can sometimes fall a bit flat, but I don't know. I mean, I understand if it was a bit of a sort of a comedic sort of in-joke between the characters, which is fair enough, but again, I can also see it from the other perspective, where you'd think after all this time that Bruce would essentially trust Alfred impeccably, considering everything that Alfred has been through with not just Bruce Wayne but the Bat family in general throughout Batman's 70 plus year history, or 75 plus year history even, rather. It's another really great scene where Gordon, upon explaining that this gentleman in his office was telling him of the monster men that are coming, before seemingly proceeding to stab himself in the neck with a pen and essentially bleed out on the floor in Gordon's office, Batman seemingly disappears, in which Gotham is just gobsmacked, and he says, "That's impossible. I'm using my X-ray vision. I'm using my, my all sorts of vision to try and find him. I can't find him." To which Gordon actually responds, "It's not impossible, kid. It's Batman," which was a really cool moment. And again, it's kind of a callback to the diner scene at the end of, I believe, a Christmassy themed episode where Batman meets Jim Gordon for a coffee. Before he can actually say anything in terms of paying the check, Batman's already paid it and he's seemingly disappeared. And Gordon just sort of curses him and says, one of these days I'm going to nail his feet to the floor. So it's kind of a callback to the kind of similar vein to the end of that episode in the Batman the Animated Series from the 90s. So that was a really cool scene. And you also get the reveal at the end of the second issue as to who the big bad is, which is interesting, considering that I don't think this particular Batman villain from Batman's Rogues Gallery has been used all that much. Excuse me. In the New 52, I know he was used in some of the Legends of the Dark Knight stories, particularly Prey and a few other stories. For those of you who've read those particular story arcs, you know which villain I'm talking about, but I'm not going to spoil it just in case anybody wants to pick up the first two issues of Tom King's Batman and hasn't had a chance to read them yet. So overall, my thoughts on the first two issues, they were really, really well written, really enjoyable issues. I really liked David Fincher's artwork. Surprisingly, I'm not really the biggest fan of David Fincher's artwork normally, but again, really well done in my opinion. Um, Also, it's complemented with lovely inking by Matt Banning and fantastic, fantastic colouring from Jordie Bellaire, who I first became aware of on Jonathan Hickman's alternate history sci-fi series, The Manhattan Projects, and then she later was the colorist on the Magneto solo series from Marvel with Colin Bunn, which again she did a fantastic job there, as well as being the colorist on the last volume of Moon Knight, written by Warren Ellis and predominantly, at least initially illustrated by Declan Shalvey, and then Greg Smallwood, I believe, took over the art duties around issue 6 or issue 7. Anyway, she did a fantastic job on the last issue of Moon Knight, colouring us as well. So yeah, really enjoyable issues overall. Didn't necessarily wow me. In terms of I have to pick up the next issue and I have to put it on my pull list. I don't know. I might continue with it with the upcoming crossover with Batman, Detective Comics, and Nightwing, with, of course, written respectively by James Tynion or Tynion the Fourth and Tim Seeley, who's going to be writing Nightwing. So I trust Tim Seeley from his collaboration with Tom King in the pages of Grayson impeccably. So really, really excited to see what Tim Seeley can do on his own with the character of Dick Grayson in the pages of the new Nightwing series, which will debut at the end of this month. So yeah, overall, really enjoyable issues. Again, me personally, didn't wow me enough to think, I really, really need to read the next issue, although I probably will. I might pick it up just for the crossover, but as far as putting on my pull list, I don't know. I might, I might subsidize it or replace it with Detective Comics. I'll see once I've given you my thoughts on the first two issues of Tynion the Fourth's, or Tynion. Don't know how to pronounce his last name. I apologize if I'm butchering it, but we'll see if Detective Comics fares any better in terms of having a sort of permanent place on my pull list in terms of a Bat-related book. So yeah, thank you everybody for watching. As always, feel free to leave a comment, rate the video up or down, and subscribe if you're new and you want to see future content from me in the foreseeable future. And until next time, this is Scambit896 signing off, and I'll see you guys later.